Hello everyone, Pineapple here with the latest appearance from the 8th Doctor, Charlie and Audacity with Causeway. Also known as the one where Audacity almost becomes Rory in this dynamic. And with the rest of Audacity's stories, and helped by the last two stories being a two-parter, this feels a lot like a new Who series. As tying into her first box set, Causeway does feel like the end of an arc. But clearly not the end for Audacity if the teaser at the end is anything to go by. Last time we had 3 stories in Deadly Strangers, a fairly good set, but could have done with some tweaks. So will this set live up to Audacity's entrance, or will it be just fine? Let's take a look with the first story. Now the first story of the set is Lost Amongst the Stars by Rashana Patel, who we last heard from in Dark Gallifrey's Missy. And Lost Amongst the Stars, while mostly good, much like another recent 8 in Audacity story, The Bramble King, I'm not really sure what to say about it. It's not bad, but both times I listened to this story, I just didn't get into it the whole way. Paul McGann returns as 8 and is as good as ever, getting both nice emotional moments that, while effective, don't betray 8's early alien characterization, although it does seem he likes Audacity a lot more than he will Keres. But he also gets a fair amount of good laughs this episode. Along for the ride is Charlie Pollard, reprised by India Fisher, and Charlie is odd for me in this story. There are large swaths where she feels reduced to the side or like a damsel in distress, but by the end she comes in clutch, and manipulates a hive bug species into saving the day and beating the antagonistic infectious fungus. So she gets great in the end, but I admit I wasn't feeling much from her the rest of the story, bar a couple of good lines. Of course we have Audacity and the fungus that consumes her, and Jay Griffiths plays both sides very well, getting good lines like the others in both forms, but very well able to distinguish between Audacity herself and the creature she is possessed by. The events are started as a ship trying to document possible colony worlds comes across a rogue planet, one not bound by any solar field, but somehow there are signs of previous life structures and buildings. Among this crew is the leader Castor, played by Nicholas Khan, and Specialist, thanks to a chip in her head, Aurora, played by Beeman Abney. And neither are flat characters, both get their moments to shine, but I wasn't particularly endeared by their not amazingly deep personalities. Especially for Typhon, played by Robert Whitelock, who is the first to perish, unknowingly waking the fungus up and getting used as an infector. My favourite of the group though is Sparky, played by Obioma Ogala, a sassy yet helpful robot that is part of the ship's crew, having instant chemistry with the cast.
Do not panic.
A mechanical giant. Charlie, arm yourself. We have fought such monsters before.
Oh, go on, say it again. I think they've missed it.
Please, do not panic.
I am not panicking. I am taking prudent defensive measures.
Yes, this is a 55th century Explorer class mech. That's a mop. Honestly, this is embarrassing. I'm so sorry about this.
So with the TARDIS team's help, the crew start looking around the planet, mostly in an underground base, looking for the missing man. But when they get their power back on, the light starts bringing the frozen dormant fungus to life. Charlie disappearing and Audacity taken over fully, but one by one, everyone but Charlie is taken over. And while infected, Audacity is registered as dead. Now you know she's most likely going to make it out, and she does, but honestly I think this story just has the weight behind it. And maybe it should have taken the Bramble King's place, feeling more horror than that story did, even if both hit the mark. The villain itself is a little generic, but the way the mystery unfolds and the way Charlie beats it in the end are all set up pretty well. And I think if you're into the scary side or in for an interesting puzzle and solution type narrative, I'd recommend it. But it just didn't grab me. And honestly, I don't know why. I can clearly see the goods and bads, but for some reason the goods just didn't suck me in on either listen as much as I expected or wanted. Once Charlie beats the mold, Aurora asks to be taken home to report the dangerous mold, and although we get some nice wrap up, the main note ending the story is that Aurora reports to the Causeway. And I get it, it's the big stinger for the set, as it's clear the Causeway will be set up / dealt with in the next story. But even though teased before, we don't actually know what the Causeway is. So the ending stinger is a little funny in retrospect, as it's just a word word that might have harrowing implications, but we don't know anything about. This isn't an indictment on the story, just an aspect I found humorous in it being one of the most obscure mystery boxes that I recall from Doctor Who, a format that New Who and New Who style sets use regularly. So that was Lost Amongst the Stars. We have mostly good acting, but with one or two flat characters, an interesting mystery and intense stakes, even if not used to their fullest. And a sci-fi concept, while done before, clearly had a lot of thought and creativity behind it. So I'll recommend the story overall, but unfortunately due to my experience, have to give a score on the lower side. So I'll give Lost Amongst the Stars by Rashana Patel a 6.5 out of 10. Lastly, for the box set, we have a two-parter, The Time You Never Had. And while I was unmoved by Lost Amongst the Stars, this two-parter is the clear standout of Causeway, setting up future adventures but also tying back into Audacity's Cybermen two-parter, picking up a story thread I was sure would turn back up. As for the main characters, 8 gets some great stuff, and while Audacity is clearly the focus, he is 1/3 of the great moral quandary in the story. And his status as a Time Lord is used well too. As the Causeway do their sketchy business, he is physically repulsed, using his extra senses to steady his opinion on the business of commercial time travel for all. While Audacity's ultimately wrong but understandable view creates good character moments as they discuss the topic. Charlie is also involved, but while getting good moments with both the Doctor and Audacity, she isn't wasted in the story or anything like that. But she clearly isn't the focus, even if many times the story will point out and reference the Charlie arc that this storyline takes place in the middle of, having referenced Storm Warning and many times hinting at the resolution of that first arc with Neverland and Zagreus. Now, of course, as the focal point, we need to talk about Audacity. Both of them. Yes, we have two Audacities. The one with the Doctor and Charlie, and the one that travels for years in the Oculus with Barabbas. And not only are both Audacities used well, each having their own opinions, arguments, and moral stances at points, each get large moments of depth to show the distinctions between them, and also managing to set up a future wave for the character. This story isn't perfect, but Audacity is definitely the shining star of the two-parter. Another great character we have is Mr. Barabbas, played by repeat Silurian actor Richard Hope. Basically a mirror to the Doctor in a world where instead of Homo sapiens, it's Homo reptilia that thrive on the Earth. Him and Audacity travelling together and growing close, Barabbas getting an arc of weighing his love for Audacity with the fate of the universes, and getting a good hopeful ending, even while bittersweet as we don't know how real it is. But for a character mostly just in part 2, I was really impressed that along with Audacity, he felt so multi-layered in the narrative. Just a perfect blend of great actor and material. The people we meet working at the Causeway are Peter Mansfield, played by Andrew Wincott, and Professor Veronica Hayes, played by Poppy Miller. Both actors previously versed in Big Finish, and both are fairly good. Sure, Veronica could have done with a little more fleshing out, but Peter goes from smarmy businessman to revenge and despair-filled, being played perfectly. And their ending is just very sweet. So while I'm not enamored by them, they do work. Lastly is the enigmatic, seemingly future Causeway higher-up, Annika, played by Henrietta Wolfmountain. And I'm not so sure about her. Sure, the character is played well, and she does well to set up mysteries for the future, giving appropriate gravitas by name-dropping Torchwood, the Codicil, and even the Forge. So unfortunately, I suppose she just works better as a plot device than a three-dimensional character. Now for the story itself, part 1, we start with a nice poem in both parts, but the TARDIS is hit in the vortex. Running into the Causeways, their Causeway. A hole breaching one universe to another through the vortex, not only jolting Audacity out of her mood, but to be fair she did die and come back, so a little existential crisis is warranted, but also chars the book that she held, so it was a close call. While we get a good introductory scene to Peter and Veronica, very flirty, the TARDIS crew track the hole back to the Causeway in Copenhagen 1997, and the logo on the building revealing they were the ones in charge of the time tourism in the Great Cyber War. And later in the story also referencing Deckard from the Gloaming, so while it's no bad wolf, I do appreciate the Audacity series throughline. They meet Annika, who is undercover as the Causeway's receptionist, and they manage to bluff their way into a tour from Peter, who skirts the line line perfectly between slightly smarmy but cordial businessman and kind of evil. He gets some great lines and reveals the Causeway want to use the remains of a mysterious crashed time ship to create what basically amounts to commercial time travel, and cleverly reveals he's only so open because he's caught on to the travelers, making him a more credible threat. Audacity and 8 argue as 8 tries to describe the sheer danger of the Causeway, while Audacity believes time travel should be open to all, which, while giving us a good Thaddeus Nook reference, shows us Audacity's understandable but flawed take. Now sure, she learns fairly soon that she's wrong, but it does open up the interesting thought that while time must be governed to assuade catastrophe and time travel, we should be asking who has the right to do so. Now the story doesn't go any deeper into the idea directly, but I think the decision in part 2, where they debate what to do about the Causeway, is nicely set up. Eventually they are chased by the Causeway security in a fun chase, 8 and Audacity sneaking back in while Charlie is kidnapped by Annika and delivered to Peter, Veronica attempting to torture her for the good of their project, Charlie giving off unique readings due to her whole time fuckery story arc. The while I'm glad is mentioned later, Annika positing the idea that if time was not changed, 8 would never have met Audacity. But I'm not exactly sure how Charlie's arc is going to be tied into Audacity further, considering we can't go too crazy with it since we know where they end up by Neverland. 8 and Audacity find one end of this Causeway an archway gate in the lower levels of the building, and although 8 would like to shut them down, they're too late, Veronica using Charlie to boost the power of the Causeway, and through it comes Mr. Barabbas, who impresses Peter with his etiquette. 8 is locked up, but immediately let out by the ever-mysterious Annika, while Audacity saves Charlie, but Mr. Barabbas betrays Peter, knocking him and Veronica out with his venom, getting confronted by 8 as he tries to destroy the time tech, which unfortunately will have random destructive consequences. The episode ending with the reveal of a second Audacity appearing. Now part 1 has its own good set pieces, action, dialogue, and is mostly set up for part 2, but instead of being boring like Doctor Who part 1 can be upon rewatch, I think the balance is excellent here, so while I think part 2 is better as a culmination, part 1 doesn't slack with an 8.5. Very good, but not 9 as it wasn't astounding. Part 2 opens with poetry again, but we start and spend a lot of time from our second Audacity's point of view, which may last a tad long, but the character work, dialogue and performances between her and Barabbas are captivating so much I barely noticed the length. Audacity appears with the book that was singed in the real TARDIS on the other side of the Causeway, in a universe called the Oculus, where it seems that Barabbas is from a world where Silurians evolved over humans, and he has his ship, the Tempo, much akin to a TARDIS. They spend their time travelling, Audacity returning to a planet that allows her to reminisce on the universe that she thinks may be destroyed, and the two getting very close, but when Audacity is injured, instead of blaming Barabbas, she accepts a new augmentation to herself, although if I had faced the Cybermen like her, I would probably be a little more wary. But the acting is stellar. I want to hear a lot more stories with either Barabbas or just Richard Hope in general. Eventually they use the Causeway to make it back to Endspace. Audacity asks to stay on the ship, but of course ignoring Barabbas meeting her other self. 8 and Barabbas debate how to close the Causeway, as if they close it now there's all the chance the Oculus is destroyed, or the opposite. 8 begging for time to think and plan, Barabbas accepting. The Audacities bicker and they debate what to do with the splitter that's caused all these problems. The splitter being apart from the original time ship that started the Causeway's advancement, and its activation having split the Audacities. Peter wakes to find Victoria has had an adverse reaction to the venom, so after the 5 main characters do some good debating, he blunders in with a gun.
He struck her down!
Ridiculous. I merely knocked her out.
And now she's dead!
I don't understand. I made sure the dose was weak.
You've misjudged our biology before. Just look at the throat of my older self. You have no right to hold that against him.
Let's all just calm down.
No, Doctor. This is my fault. You were right to try and stop me. I opened up a mouth to hell.
Peter blames Barabbas and fires, but hits the younger Audacity, while Barabbas forces the older Audacity to flee. The younger Audacity dies, Barabbas fleeing and attempting to ensure the Oculus is the victor. Copenhagen's starting to crumble. Audacity can't stand Barabbas' actions, his possession and love for her, now condemning a universe and Peter who he killed. And this is another way Barabbas being a mirror to the Doctor is used well. The Doctor tries to stop others using time travel, talking about what is right, while Barabbas does what he thinks needs to be done selfishly for his love. Audacity, much like the last Audacity, accusing the time traveler of not having the right to act. 8 just manages to contact Barabbas and appeal to his better nature, so Barabbas with Audacity help ram the mystery timeship before it can crash, while also giving Audacity back her book, carrying around enough end space energy to save her from the crash, causing the Causeway and its causeway to be undone. And the TARDIS team returned back to the TARDIS at a point before the wave. The Doctor and Charlie remembering Copenhagen, and Audacity remembering her years with Barabbas, causing understandable mental anguish. 8 doubles back and confronts Annika, revealing her as a future member of the Causeway. The higher-ups of the organisation unwriting their origins, believing they had become too big, and bringing up that with Charlie's lack of death, his timeline is straying from its original course. We get a sweet scene of Veronica and Peter meeting for the first time, knowing they should know each other and getting together. Annika confirming it'll work out, hopefully with less kidnapping and experimentation. We also learn the timeship will be part of the Doctor's future, saying it's out of sight and out of mind for now, and with the post-credit scene describing tally marks on 8's skin, I wonder what creature is best matched with those. So yeah, I assume the Silence will be confronting 8 in the near future. Apart from the post-credit scene, Audacity is ready to travel again, but is adamant to make every moment count and be joyful, aiming to, much like the Silence, keep Barabbas out of sight, out of mind. Imagining and hoping there is a world out there where she and Barabbas are still together and fighting the good fight. That scene acted out for us, just to make the moment hit harder. So part 2 continues with a lot more action, character drama, and timey-wiminess. Now while it does close off the Causeway story for now and leaves us with a future threat leering, it does feel a little aimless, at least in the way that even though the Causeway has been shut down, they still exist in a pulling the strings capacity, such as Annika. And even though Annika was manipulating the whole situation, she got very little in the way of character arc or comeuppance. That feeling quite odd. But the time between Barabbas and Audacity is great, Charlie and 8 are used pretty well, and while not as hard as say Archipelago, the emotional moments do hit very hard. So while I feel I can't give this a 10 out of 10, it's not perfect, there isn't much wrong here, so I'll give part 2 of The Time You Never Had a 9.5 out of 10. Meaning as a whole, The Time You Never Had by Tim Foley gets a solid 9 out of 10 together, definitely deserved, and while it does still leave Causeway open to return, I think it does work well in the same way as a New Who finale does, with tying back into previous stories and to bring a satisfying season conclusion. This essentially ending the first season of 8 Charlie and Audacity. So with that, I can definitely recommend Causeway. Although, as I just said, this basically works as the end of a New Who season, at least listen to the Audacity set and inform yourself about the last 2 sets. I mean, hey, my other videos are sitting right there. And the box set as a whole scores, let's call it an even 8 out of 10. And I can't wait to see where the story goes, and how the Silence will tie in. Although when it comes to the Silence in Big Finish, I can say with what I've previously listened to, that they can be hit or miss. Thank you everybody for watching my review of Causeway. Please like the video if you liked it, comment down below if you wish, consider subscribing to the channel, and if you do, ring the notification bell so that you're told every single time that I make an upload. Once again, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next review. Bye!
Toast. A little piece of toast. Because there's so much to choose from. There's brown bread, white bread, all sorts of wholemeal bread. It comes in funny packages with writing on the side.